much for joining us during this momentary distraction of simple amusements and magic.
Well, good morning and a happy Friday to everyone out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Chris Herren as Faust, and I'm your host here at Faust Company. Our special guest today is John Stevens, and he is waiting in the back, and we'll introduce him real quickly. But first, I would like to announce that next week on Wednesday, we're going to feature Raven and Miggs. I've been promoting their virtual show here, and they are coming on now to talk about what is in store in their virtual show. But before we get to that, check out their video, and I hope you can make next week. So please check out this video and enjoy.
Join Raven and Miggs this March 27th, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, and watch as they perform their virtual magic show, combining both sleight of hand and mental magic, creating what they consider slightly mental magic. Raven and Miggs are longtime Hollywood Magic Castle performers, and now it's your chance to grab a front row seat. This family-friendly Zoom magic show runs 45 minutes, and tickets are on sale now for only $10 a device. Simply click the link below. We hope to see you there.
So that was Raven and Miggs. They'll be here next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m., and they will be talking about their virtual show, and I hope you guys can make it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope today is a good day for you. If you're out there, please say hello in the comments. It's always great to see you and to have your support. I can't thank you enough. Well, today we have a very special guest, but I would like to start the show with a little bit of mental magic. Mental magic is also known as mentalism, and this video was donated to us by my good friend Dean Williamson of the Factory of Magic from the UK. So take a look at this video, follow along, and I think you'll be quite intrigued. Check it out.
Time is an interesting concept. We are governed by it. Our very fates and our existence are determined by the time on this planet, and so we must use this time wisely. They say you cannot predict events, and therefore you cannot predict time, but I beg to differ. Here is a clock. I would like you to focus on one number, and now change it. Remember that number. Now each number on the clock has an opposite. For example, 1 is to 7, like 9 is to 3. Find the opposite of your original number. Now I would like you to subtract the lower number from the higher number. Keep this final random number in mind. And as the clock begins to fade, keep staring at the screen, saying your number out loud, over and over and over and over and over. Stop. Did you think of the number 9? I didn't either. The number you are thinking of is the number 6.
That was the Factory of Magic, and that was Dean Williamson. Well, I'm looking over at the comment section. Hello to Sherry Stevens out there. Thank you for joining us. And also, Chubster, I wanted to throw out a shout out to you. And I just was on a lecture with these guys in the Philippines. So, Chubster from the Philippines, welcome and thank you for tuning in, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you this featured guest. This featured guest is a regular at Night of Curiosities in Portland, Oregon, and he's been performing magic for over 30 years across the nation in different states, sharing his style of magic. He is known as the creator of Magical Connections, and not to mention, he is also the founder of Pastor John's Blessed Beans, turning water into coffee. So please, a round of applause in the comment section for my good friend, John Stevens. John, welcome to Faust Company, my friend.
Hey,
Pleasure.
Chris.
First off, thank you, John, for coming. Let me shoot out some of these comments that are coming in. They're all here watching you, John. Judy Perry says hello. Hello to you, Judy. Julio out there, saludos, amigo, and hello to you, my friend. Travis Martois. They are all here to see you, my friend, and some friends from the Philippines as well.
Well, and my mom's here as well, Sherry. So yeah, there we are.
Oh, there she is. Yes,
I
I see.
tell you, my dad's probably watching with her. So there we are. Yeah. So good stuff.
Well, first off, John, thank you so much. The reason why we had you come on here, I met you at Night of Curiosities with Jonathan Molo and many other guys, and we actually met in person, and that's always a treat. And you also are, I found out that you are a magician and you have quite the background, which I would love to get to. But to start things off, I would love to know where your journey in magic began, John. Could you give us a little brief description of how magic came into your life?
Yeah. So I probably, I could probably ask my mom the question better, but because it goes way back, and it's this origin story. I remember in kindergarten seeing a clown doing the sponge balls. So that was an amazing thing, and I remember that feeling, that awe feeling. And then I did magic a little bit through that, and then in 4th grade, we had my aunt and uncle owned a restaurant, and one of the waiters was a magician who actually ended up later going to work for David Copperfield as a stagehand in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And that's where we lived. And he did a magic show for my grandmother. For me, for my birthday. I remember a trick that he did for my grandmother where she used to smoke, and he would take the cigarette and push it through a quarter. And the bug bit, and that was. But then, like many people, it fades. You get into other interest. So I'm at school. at a place called the Lutheran Bible Institute, which was my undergrad, and we'll get back to that.
Yes.
But having pizza with some friends, and a friend shows me a card trick, and from there, after that card trick, almost every Saturday, I would spend down at Hades Magic in downtown Seattle off of Pioneer Square. And that's the rest is history, as they say.
And so where are you located now, John? You mentioned Seattle, but where are you located currently?
I'm located currently just outside of the Portland area, Portland, Oregon. So
okay, so Portland, Oregon. Now, I know there are a lot of magicians out there that are starting out in magic, and partly why I, wanted to bring people on to this show was to kind of give their story. I know for myself, it was the transition from being a hobbyist to a professional magician was quite difficult, and it can often be scary. at what point did you decide to take your magic to the professional stage, John?
Well, it's interesting because for the full definition of a professional, I'd probably be seen as more of the semi-professional or the serious amateur, or because it's definitely not my full-time gig. It's not my bread and butter. But it is a passion, and I find, like any passions, I find that you can plug it into anything you're doing, and I just like I like the experience of sharing that. You mentioned, the creator of magical connections. Anytime we can use something that we have to further the connections we have with people, the friendships we have with people, the moment of astonishment.
Yes.
Yeah. And so.
Well, I completely agree with you. I believe in that philosophy that magic can connect people, especially during this time period. I think we're, ironically more connected to people outside of our small circle or in our local community. And so I gravitated to that term that you brought up, magical connections.
Mm-hmm.
And so you did mention, John, which I'm kind of curious. I've been curious before the show even started. You mentioned that this is not your full-time job.
Right.
What is your full-time job?
So my full-time job, I'm a Lutheran pastor in the ELCA, which is short for Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And it gets hard using the word evangelical because everybody uses it, and usually uses it on the conservative side. I'm part of I would say I'm part of the church body that plays with everybody, where we tend to be seen as a little on the more liberal side, but away from theology and that, so I'm a Lutheran pastor, and it's just that's what I love to do. So.
It's amazing how magic can bring in different backgrounds and kind of, weave into different art forms, different disciplines. How would you say magic and your occupation, how have the two meshed, and how would you say it has influenced each other?
Storytelling. I mean, that really is when it comes down to it. We're all about stories. I mean, our lives are a story. And I mean, the first thing you asked me, what's your origin story? Where did you come about? And so the stories that we have that connect ourselves. So I mentioned I went to LBI, Lutheran Bible Institute, which is, for all intents and purposes, a fairly middle of the line school. But when you have Bible Institute in your name, there's going to be conservative folks or folks that look at magic with a little, like, a slant. They're like, what are you doing? And I remember walking in, I worked at the bookstore there, and I had someone walked in, and they're like, and I mean, it was like I very rarely have had that accusation where, like, you're doing magic. But at this point, I'm in this bookstore and I'm working there, and someone walks in and they say, I hear you do magic. What's that all about? And I had no idea who this person was. So this is a trick I carry in my wallet to this day. I had it there, and I said, here, I'll show you. I'm gonna pull this up so you can see. It's just so the lighting is weird. So so this dollar bill reminds me of life, reminds me of you and me, reminds me of just of who we are. And it seems like it's all pieced together. It seems like it's all beautiful and nicely done, like a piece of art. But the fact is that when we start digging into people, when we start talking to people about who they are and their pasts and what they've gone through, we start noticing that we're not all pieced together perfectly. I mean, it's not glued or taped, but it's pieces that have come together. But when we hear people's stories, being the tradition I'm at, when we hear the words of Christ, there's the sense that when we are brought together as one body, we then become whole again. And so I just showed that to her, and I said, and that's what it's about. And she went, oh, okay. All of a sudden, it wasn't I wasn't doing any incantation or spells, but there was that point of story and just tying it into the bigger picture. So
I love that. And I think, again, we can all just perform tricks, but I think what you just demonstrated is you gave the trick or the magic meaning. And I think that's sort of, and now I understand further the coin title that you have, Magical Connections. It is connecting all the stories and all the tricks and everything to create a message. And I think that makes it that much more meaningful. So thank you, John, for that sort of demonstration of magic, because it allows me to understand what that coin term means. Yeah. Now, off topic, John, I have to ask you, one of the things that I didn't know when I first met you was that you are, I don't know what the proper title is, but you're the founder of Pastor John's Blessed Beans. How has that, how is that connected to all this? I know that is a passion of yours, but first off, how did you get into the coffee business?
So 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, someone gifted me a pound of green unroasted coffee. And I had started with an air popper, which if you're looking to roast coffee, that's a great way to get into it. But just a oval Redenbacher air popper. And then from there, I've always had a love of coffee. And when I came out to Seattle for school, that's when I experienced good coffee. And then it was like, whoa. And then but then so it's interesting, the tie between. So I've been roasting coffee for about 2 years, and I've got a Facebook page that you can search up, Pastor John's Blessed Beans. But so when people ask me what my favorite thing about being a pastor is, my automatic response is having a cup of coffee with someone and calling it work. Because when we sit down and we have a cup of coffee, it's like the magic. It's anything that can connect us together as people. So
I put that down at the bottom of the screen, Pastor John's Blessed Beans. I sort of giggled when I heard this, because I went to Catholic school, so I understand turning water into coffee. That's wonderful. I have to ask you though, and you know what? I do have a picture of your logo, and I'd like to bring it up if you don't mind.
Oh, and not at all.
That way people can see it. And there it is. Let me take off the little logo there. Just a second.
So I have to give credit where credit's due. My wife came up with the slogan. I was playing around with coffee good enough to raise the dead or something like that, and that was maybe pushing the envelope, and she came up with that, and I'm like, that's the slogan.
And I have to ask though, that's a great term, a quote as well. I mean, it definitely plays funny, and I do have to ask, do you use coffee in any of your magic routines?
No, I haven't yet. I've looked at some of the effects that are out there and things like that, but I have not yet done that. I use it to prepare as I drink it. But, yeah. So.
Okay, there's a question coming in, John, and I'll bring it up here so you can see. It says, can I ask in question, what can you say to those people saying that magic is against God? Because most laymen believe that magic is all about lying. By the way, I want to hear from you, John, because you're a pastor. Also, me and my family is also religious. Thank you. Keep safe. Hi, Chris. Well, hello to you. So I guess, I think you answered partially, but if you wanted to elaborate on that, John, please do.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. It's funny because I'll be on an airplane, and when I'm on an airplane and someone asks me what I do for a living, I kind of feel out the person before I answer, and I might say I'm a pastor, but if I also feel like that conversation might go down a rabbit hole, I say I'm a magician. It all depends on who the person is sitting next to, because that is, Jan, that's a hard. It's a hard question, but sometimes we're just playing with. This is definitely a conversation for a cup of coffee around a table, but some of my comment is there are some great articles written about this, and usually what I do is I steer that to them, because a lot of it has to do with different terminology when we're using magic. But his point is like, magic is all about lying and deception. One of the things we use about in magic is that phrase suspension of belief. That when we enter into a magic show, or when we enter into a trick, an effect, we're asking the audience to suspend their belief. It's kind of like when I go into a movie and I'm watching the movie, I don't think Mission Impossible that they're actually breaking in, but I want to believe it. So there's that suspension of belief. And so now I have ethical or moral issues with the psychics that pretend that they are actually, when they are like Houdini. Houdini had that, when the spiritualist is trying to say, I'm going to reach your loved ones, and also while we're at it, give me $150 so I can tell you what they said. That's that line that I'm not wanting to cross.
Yes.
Dramatic seances where you're pretending. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
You bring up a good point, because I myself have come across, I use the name Faust, and that name already is associated with, as you know, John, with someone who sold his soul to the devil. So,
Yeah.
Right. So although my emphasis on the name is completely different than the actual story, the literary story, it still draws a lot of suspicion. And I always tell people straight out, what you see is not real. This is theater for me. And although I am fooling you, yes, it's like what you see in a movie. What you see is not real, but it goes beyond that. Yeah. And I think if you're ready to be entertained through that sort of medium, then then let's go with it. But if you're not, then I'll respect the fact that it may go against or be contrary to your beliefs, and sometimes you just can't satisfy everyone, and that,
right.
Sean.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's a social contract, if you will. We're entering into this conversation, and if the person that I'm performing for agrees with that, then we're great. If not, then I won't perform, because
right. You know what? It's supposed to be fun. Magic is supposed to be fun and entertaining, and I try to keep it that way. But yes, and it's a great, and like you said, it is a conversation to have, around the coffee table or even a drink, and to really talk about it, because it does happen. And I think it was a valid question.
Yeah.
And John, I have to ask. We are on very limited time, but and I could obviously talk to you all day long, but I have to ask you, do you have any projects coming up? I know you mentioned to me Night of Curiosities. Could you give us a little bit of hint of what they're doing now?
Yeah. So with a Night of Curiosities, we have so as Chris knows, and Judy knows, and my mom knows, we have been performing before the shutdown, before the pandemic. We were performing a monthly show at the Curious Comedy Theater. Yes. And and Chris was one of the first performers when getting that show started. I think you were like one of the first or second shows that we had.
Yeah, I remember that. That was fun, and that's where we met after the show.
We met, yep. And so, like everything else, we've moved it online. It's taken us, about 6 months we weren't doing anything, and then 2 months ago we decided we need to start getting the name and our faces back out there. So once a month we are gathering online with Nate Smith, who is connected to the club, and he's an improv, and he also is known as it's Nate, and Nate is Donk's manager. Donk is a puppet, but much more than a puppet. And so last time they hosted the show, and there were 3 of us, and we each magician is different enough that you get about a 10 to 15 minute different kind of magic act, and in that.
Yeah.
But once a month, it's free. We have a tip jar, but it's right now it's just keeping it out there. And so
it's a well-produced show. You're right. There are different styles of magic coming on one right after the other. John, I would like to promote some of your social media, so I would like to tell people where to find you. So if you don't mind, this is your website, jwmagic.com. John, one last question for you. When people see your show, what could they expect when they see your show, or what do you hope for them to walk out with after they've seen your show?
Jonathan Molo has been pushing this a lot, and it needs to be said. It's the positivity, it's the joy, it's the reminding folks that one of the things that for me, and it doesn't matter what I do, but I want people to go away with the understanding. And I have friends that will give me a bad time because it's what I say all the time, that you are loved. And that's that idea and that's that ultimate connection again, that you're loved, you're enough, you matter, you're worthy. And that's a sense of anything we can do to build that up. And
Yes.
So, yeah,
it's definitely, John, that is a great message to put out there that, I know Jonathan Molo definitely exudes that, and it has, certainly influenced me, but to be loved and to give out love through magic, as it may be, because, magic is a very powerful platform to use, and I'm glad. And that when I seen your magic, I really walked away was that you were giving your heart to this art and to the people you were performing for. Yeah. So thank you for that, John.
Because we're coming, I think it feels like we're kind of getting close to wrapping up. I want to make, I wanted to show an example of this connection, because there's things that we're drawing, and we've had this conversation enough that I'm getting a feeling about you. And I know you, but we're feeling, I pick people to do this trick with, and so I'm picking you. So I have here. Can you tell the two colors that are on this?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And what are they?
You have a blue and an orange.
Okay, blue and an orange. It's actually as well. Is that a little better? It does.
Yeah. So it looks like a light blue, and then kind of like a pumpkin orange on the bottom.
All right, it's my camera. It's green red. That's okay. So but that's and so green and red, they have here, I'll even hold that up there.
Okay, yeah, okay. Green is good. Green and red.
Thank you. So we've got green and red. So they have different meanings. Now every time I've done this, I've gotten the same outcome, and so I want to see about this with you. Meaning, so red, both of these colors have meanings. Red is for, can mean adventure. It can mean passion for love. It can mean fire for just, that passion. You got the red sports cars, got all this. Red is a passion for life.
Yes.
Green is like the color of envy. They say, I don't know, like it's the color of money, and the root of all evil is money. Or green could be, it could be people that pick green, could be spiteful. Oh, but also people who pick green also know the power of reversed psychology. So there's that too. There's that. So I've got red and I've got green. If you had to pick a color, now, I've done this 36 times, and it's always come out the same way. If you had to pick green or red, what color would it be?
I would say red.
Yes. Yes. Because here, let me show you. I'm going to open it up, and you'll see that green. Green has no marks whatsoever. And here, let me pull out the red. If I can get it. There we go. Pull out the red out of the pocket. Yeah. The red has 36 marks, which now actually has 37. Here, let me mark 37.
So I'm one of the 37.
You're one of 37, but no one else has picked green. It's only been red. It is. I tell you, you have a passion for life, and that is good. And all right.
Thank you, John. And you know what? I was just compelled to pick the red. Thank you so much for that. Your magic always intrigues me, my friend. I always ask the featured guest to leave a message to our audience out there, a positive message, if you will, to close out the show. If you don't mind, I'd be honored if you would do that for us to close out the show today, John.
Well, I said it earlier, and I mean it. You are loved, my friends.
Thank you. I think that is a great way to end the show. We would hope that you could come back again, John. Your story is fascinating, and I love your message in magic. And once again, thank you for coming.
Chris, thanks for having me.
Thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Stevens, our featured guest. My name is Chris Herren as Faust. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Faust Company, and we will see you again. So happy Friday, everyone.
All right, thanks.